permitted certain economic activities. And the major reform in July 2002 was when the government officially recognized or gave status to markets. But despite this, they're always very careful about political backlash, right? So they try to crack down on these. They instigated these reforms, and then they try to crack down. So it's this constant push and pull. But if they open up this much, they try to contract, but they can never go back to the front of the initial ground. So it eventually ends up spreading, right? So there's this official markets formed called Jong-Il and Central District Market, and around the official markets also formed unofficial markets, right? So you see that regardless of the intention of the North Korean leaders, it did open up, these reforms did open up floodgates to various market forces that started taking place in North Korea. Phase 3 is immediately before Kim Jong-il's death, and I call this phase the two-pronged approach, where the first direction that they take is they continue to try to normalize their economy and their production to boost their production. And then the second approach is they're really focused on strengthening their cooperation with China. So their bilateral trade increased a lot. Kim Jong-il visited China 3 times in a matter of a couple of years, and they came down to many agreements, including the Orascom, the Egyptian company Orascom, coming into North Korea and doing business there. The Rasan Special Economic Zone was revitalized during this time. It was formed in 1991, but it was revitalized during this time. The Hwangdeum-pyeong and the Wihwa Island was also agreed upon. The development of those areas was also agreed upon between China and North Korea. And of course, the Kaesong Industrial Complex continued to stay ground. And during this period, there's also infiltration of new information and kind of new trends that Greg also mentioned. So there's increase of luxury goods that came into North Korea. So this includes cars, computers, laptops. We talk about cell phones, air conditioners, and these kinds of quote-unquote luxury goods. On average, cell phones cost, just to buy the cell phones, cost about reportedly $81. To get the service, regular service, it costs a lot more than that. And Orascom in 2011, and by the year 2011, they said that they had about estimated to be about 809,000 cell phone users in North Korea. And also their lifestyle is changing. They're watching South Korean dramas. My friend actually works in the border area in China, and she posted a picture on Facebook, and it was a picture of North Korean-made facial lotion for women, and she said that it's widely used. She also sent me a picture of mascara, North Korean-made mascara and eyeliner. So, I mean, these things exist, so things are changing, and that's not an indication of the entire country, obviously, but these products are actually, making it to the market and making it to people's homes, and a lot of them come from China as well. And it's reported that about 1% of the North Korean population, which is about 20 to 24 million North Koreans, they actually engage in market activity. So they sell and buy goods in the market, and that's how they make their living. So phase 4 now, after Kim Jong-il's death and Kim Jong-un is in power, what does this mean, right? Some people say that Kim Jong-un will be more reform-minded because he was educated in Switzerland, because China is pushing for economic reform or opening, and because his leadership legitimacy will depend on whether he can perform on these economic figures or not. Other people, on the other hand, say that he will not be reform-minded because Juche ideology in itself inherently is anti-reform, and the leadership legitimacy is antithetical to economic reform. So, given that, one can make an argument that in the short run, Kim Jong-un will not be reform-minded because he's focused on kind of internal debates and consolidating the leadership. In the long run, he may be more open to reforms. But for me, that's just speculation and prediction, right? We just simply don't know enough about what's going on in the Kim regime. We just don't know enough about Kim Jong-un himself. So given that, what do we know? What can we offer? And what do we actually have control over? What are our interests, right? And when I think about this, I think the key is to move beyond this, just solely focusing on the nuclear security issue, which is absolutely important, but it tends to get into this, tit for tat vicious cycle. But focus on that, but also engaging in activities that transform their economy and their society. So I'll just mention two things briefly on how I personally think that this transformation of economy and society could be expedited. First is through economic development projects, and this is taking place through the Kaesong Industrial Complex, Rasan SEZ, the new Hamgyongpyeong, Weihwa Island developments and whatnot. But let's face it, close to 90% of North Korea's trade or economic activities are with China and South Korea. But since the Cheonan and Yeonpyeong tragedies, I would say most of it is actually China, not even South Korea. So I would say, leverage existing Chinese ties within North Korea to bring in China to basically leverage the ties. So for example, why not a South Korea-China joint energy infrastructure project in North Korea, right? Or for example, why not a U.S.-China joint aid package to North Korea? And these are just ideas. And then lastly, the second way I think could expedite the transformation of the economy and society is to diversify North Korea's trading partners, right? So again, a large volume, majority of North Korea's trade is with China, but for example, encourage Russia or encourage, Egypt is a good example, right? Encourage more neutral third parties like Australia, the EU, it could be India of some sort, so that we can create more entry points into North Korea. And I think I'm out of time, so so I'll just end with one remark. Economic engagement, I think, is absolutely important in terms of creating a channel and a window into North Korea, and not just in economic terms, but in influencing the social environment, right? So, Kaesong Industrial Complex, we see evidences of people changing their behaviors according to the more South Korean ways, the way they dress, the way they talk even, the way their hairstyle is. I mean, you may think that's small, but that could have a ripple effect in their community, in their families, and beyond. So, I'd like to end with that, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions. Thank you.
Well, I too want to thank the organizers and thank you for bringing this group together. I think I did speak to this group a couple of years ago. And this is an incredible turnout for a Thursday night before a break. To have all of you here, when I think probably half the campus is already left, except for the people who are in my class tomorrow morning. Yeah, there we go. See, and so I think that's wonderful, and I'm quite honored to share the stage with Sarah, Nick, and especially Roberta for all the work that they've done on these sorts of issues. I'm going to talk about the North Korean human rights and U.S. policy, because I think that's an area where I can at least offer some observations. And I think I'll start with and I don't have much time, and I'm conscious of leaving time for discussion, so I'll be fairly quick. I'll start with a quick story, which was that my most direct interaction on the human rights issue was during President Bush, when we had the mother of Megumi, Yokota, the mother of the Japanese girl who was abducted, as well as a family of North Koreans who escaped North Korea and then settled in South Korea. they all came to the Oval Office to meet with President Bush. And the story of the family was particularly interesting because this was the family that was pictured trying to get into the Japanese consulate in Shenyang, was it? And you see these border guards, basically 2 of them on top of the mother, trying to pull her out of the consulate grounds so that they could not, seek asylum. And the daughter, who was then, I think, 3 years old, standing there watching these people beat on her. She had pigtails like this, standing there watching these people beating on her mother and crying. And that family eventually escaped North Korea and then settled in South Korea. And so we wanted to bring that family in to meet President Bush. And so when we were briefing him before the Oval Office meeting, we showed him this picture and explained to him the story. And he looked, I'll never forget this, he looked at the picture and he clearly was not listening to anything that I was saying because he was just staring at this picture. And then he said, and he kind of said, I got it. And I said, Mr. President, but you have to, this family, they just flew in from South Korea maybe a day or 2 ago. This whole situation might be a bit off. They may be in awe of the moment. They may not know how to react because I got it. And so we opened the door, and the President greets guests as they come into the Oval Office. And this